We all know Jennifer Lopez as one of the biggest stars in the world, singer, dancer, actress, entrepreneur. But after you read True Love, her new book that just came out, you'll discover a whole other vulnerable side of her, a woman like all of us dealing with fears, insecurities, but also the determination to grow through the hardest and most painful times in her life. I'm really delighted that this morning, Jennifer and her younger sister, Lynda Lopez, who is a journalist with the WCBS and has to go from here and cover the election.
It's election day. What am I doing here?
Election day, are here on the set live of HuffPost Live. We had a fabulous lunch in my home in LA just last week.
Yes.
And I have to say, first of all, I have a younger sister that I'm incredibly close to, and I have two daughters who are really close to each other, just 2 years apart. And so sisters mean a lot to me. But I also know that relationships with sisters evolve.
Sure.
So how has yours evolved through the years? And I love the boots you gave her for Christmas. Incidentally, we're going to have
It's
a close
good now
up
because
of the
she gave
boots,
me these
yes.
for Christmas. So can we see that?
We, you know, me and Lynda, it's funny, you know, I'm the middle sister. We have an older sister, Leslie. Lynda's the baby. And I don't know, we've always kind of been very close. We've always been close. And I think, you know, when I moved out to LA, you know, one of the things I missed most was my friendship with my sisters, especially Lynda. And I don't know, we just always kind of been best friends in that way.
I mean, the only thing I would add is that when you're the youngest, when you're the baby, and the babies out there know this, you have it pretty easy, especially if there's more than one before you. So I always had it pretty easy, and I always felt like Jennifer was, despite the fact that we're less than 2 years apart, was sort of a grown-up, an adult, and someone who was not just someone I was close to and was my friend, a know-it-all, and somebody who, you know, I could lean on and who would take care of me, who I always felt like I had someone there to take care of me.
So I just finished True Love this weekend, and I absolutely love it because on the one hand, it's really the story of a super talented, super successful woman. But on the other hand, it's the story of every woman.
Yeah.
It's the story of sort of how do you grow through the heartbreak of a divorce?
Sure.
How do you grow through reaching rock bottom? As your best friend said, you have to reach rock bottom in order to really find yourself in a deeper way. So first of all, how did you do it? And second, and I really want to ask you both that, can we just change that paradigm so that actually we can evolve and grow without having to reach rock bottom?
I don't know, you know, and it's kind of a fact that we learn most, not in the happiest times, but in the most difficult times of our lives. And for me, writing this book wasn't about that in the beginning. It was supposed to be the diary of the year I went on my first world tour. But the fact that I had just gotten divorced, the fact that I had never done a world tour, and I was really looking at my music and thinking about my relationships, because my music is really kind of autobiographical as well for each moment. Going through those 10 albums and looking at it, you realize all the things that you've been through and all the stuff that has happened to you, and you start recognizing patterns. And I think if I hadn't have, you know, just lost my family at that moment, I wouldn't have been thinking in the same way, you know? So I do think they're blessings in disguise, the hard times in our lives. We don't realize that in the moment, but it is true because there are opportunities to grow, and I talk about that in the book as well. It's just one of those things where I knew I had to. The book evolved into something different than what I intended it to be because of what I went through during that time. It was such a transitional, transformational time into realizing that all the stuff I had been through wasn't about anybody else but myself.
And because you were willing to be vulnerable.
Exactly, and it turned into, it wasn't about pointing a finger anymore. It was about looking in the mirror. For the first time and going, what am I doing? I don't like the feelings I'm having. I don't like certain things that are happening in my relationships. What is it about me? And that's when I realized, again, through the birth of my children and realizing what real love was and feeling that unconditional love for the first time. It's, you know, when you have children and going, wait a minute, just doing a whole re-examination of what that was.
And Lynda, what did you learn from what Jennifer went through? And you also have a little girl who is the same age
Yeah.
as Jennifer's Max and Emmy. So what did you learn through that whole process?
You know, I learned with the process of her going through the book, but over just really the last several years and sort of the last period of our life, something I've been learning from Jen for a while, which is you really have to desire to look to see if you need change. How do you feel about that? And what do you want to do about it? How do you want yourself and your life to feel? And is it there? And if it's not, why? And what are you doing?
And that's in your power. And I think that's the important thing, is that we have the power to create and change our lives and be the person that we want to be. We have to do the work. You know what I mean? Like, it was work for me to finally, go, okay, I need to be on my own. That's not a place that's comfortable for me, but that's something that I need to do so that I know I'm okay on my own, that I can handle this, that I got this. You know what I mean? I got these kids, I got this job, I got this house, I got this. You know what I mean? I don't need anybody else. I want somebody else.
But
that
you
would be
don't need
nice,
someone.
but I gotta be happy and whole on my own first. I gotta heal from things. You gotta give yourself time and space and all of that middle part. That's difficult to grow and to realize things about yourself, to become your own best friend, to love yourself. And that's what the book is about. The book is about realizing that the key to life, one of the biggest keys to life, is having love for yourself, love inside of you, knowing that the love inside of you is enough, that you are enough, having that self-worth. And then once you're okay there, then you can share that. Somebody can add to your happiness that you already have.
Yes, it's hard to believe that there is that story in the book about how your agent, many, many years ago, saw you through a glass door,
Right.
having a conversation with your then boyfriend,
Right.
and turned to your assistant and said, does Jennifer have low self-esteem?
Yeah.
And when people see you sort of commanding a stage and
Right.
thousands of fans, it's hard to also recognize, as you did recognize during those painful months, that you actually did have low self-esteem and you had
Right.
all these insecurities and you're looking outside yourself to be validated.
Right. Well, that's the thing. It's like you can have confidence in the things that you do, but not so much in who you are as a girl, as a person, as a woman. And I think that's what was lacking inside of me. It's like I could go out there and I could, act in a movie and be this movie star and be this person on stage and have everybody jumping and screaming and dancing and singing. And I had no problem with that. It was almost so comfortable for me. It was so funny. But there was a part of me that didn't feel like the girl without all of that was just as valuable, it was enough. And that was something, again, that you have to work on. You have to start telling yourself, believing, hey, even if I didn't have this, and even if I hadn't accomplished that, the person that I am is enough for somebody to want to be with.
That's why your question before was so great. It stuck with me so much, that do we have to hit rock bottom to be that person? I think we are actually getting to a place now, we talked about this a little before, where you can work on the woman and it can be okay now, and that's a focus and that's a priority, making yourself whole and knowing all of that stuff, knowing I love myself, knowing I'm worth having all this
And
stuff.
that's why I think the book is important, because if women can read your story and then say, I can start working on myself now. I don't have to hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
And you actually describe the moment when that realization occurred to you. And what is so fascinating to me is that it happened just as from the outside your life looked perfect.
Perfect,
July
yeah.
2011, 7th anniversary of your marriage with Mark, your 2 children that you adored. Your
Amazing.
People magazine had just named you the most beautiful woman in the world.
I had the #1 record. I had, was #1 in every country. I was on the #1 TV show with American Idol.
But you hadn't been on Half Was Live yet. Come
Right,
on.
that was the thing. That was what was missing in that moment. But everything from the outside seemed perfect. But the truth was, in that moment, my marriage was falling apart, and I was desperately, I was terrified. I was terrified that realization was occurring to me. Like, this is not working. I'm not happy. This is not good. What do? I have these 2 small children. It was so tormenting, and anybody who's gone through it knows that. And then going through it in the public eye just adds that little bit of extra ouch.
but also the self-judgments
Yeah.
that you went through, because in the book you write how the idea suddenly that this would be your third failed marriage after a very, very public failed engagement.
Right.
And suddenly beating yourself up. I mean, I'm really interested in that because I am the most self-judgmental person I know.
Right.
And I had to work on myself. I call this voice the obnoxious roommate living in my head. And
we all have that roommate.
Yeah, learning to
Everybody
kind
has
of
that guy.
evict that roommate
Yeah.
has always been so important. So your own journey, which included therapy, which included meeting the wonderful Louise Hay,
Yes.
who was a real sort of mentor to you during this process.
Absolutely. And I only met her one time. But I lived with her books for years, for the past 15 years. A friend had given it to me. And during this time, you know, I went back to one of her books, You Can Heal Your Life. Because I always thought that idea of like, if you change the thought, you can change how you feel. And I needed desperately to change how I felt in that moment. I felt defeated and like a failure when I got divorced. And, you know, like I had failed my children and, you know, and just like I was made such dumb choices. What was I doing? You know what I mean? I was just so beating myself up. And so that idea of like, stop thinking that way, start thinking in a more positive way was really great. And when I met Louise and she told me, and I write about that in the book, you know, why am I here? And I said, because, you know, well, I'm going through a divorce. And she was like, oh, I thought, and it wasn't as public yet. And she goes, oh, I figured that was what it was. And she goes, well, you don't seem angry. So I'm not angry, I'm sad. She's like, well, that's good. She goes, because some people get angry and that's hard because that causes a lot of disease, which is part of her philosophy. And I said, you know, she said, you know, Jennifer, all during my work, I always tried to figure out everybody's specific problem and help them with specific problems. But I realized that didn't matter what the problem was, if I could teach the person to love themselves, they would fix the problems on their own. Mm-hmm. And it was like a light bulb went off in my head. I had heard this so many times before.
But you then felt.
But right then I was like, love yourself. Oh, I just thought I had loved myself. Yeah, I like myself. I'm cool. I like, you know, whatever. What does that mean? But the truth is it's true, because if you truly love yourself, like I love my child, like I would never let anybody hurt my child. I protect that child. You know what I mean? I love that child. There's things that, well, yes, why am I not doing that for myself?
Yeah, you write about how when you were pregnant, you were standing next to somebody who was smoking, mm-hmm. and immediately you felt you had to remove yourself.
Right, because I had these 2 babies inside of me. Meanwhile, I had been living with smokers, and I had dated smokers. I was like, meanwhile, I'm just like inhaling their smoke for years. I'm like, and not thinking about my own health. Like,
but it's also a metaphor,
it was just a little,
right?
Again, a little light bulb that goes off in your mind and that goes, why do I not care about myself in the same way? How can I take care of my children if I don't take care of myself?
I can do this for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the metaphor of smoking would be toxic people, right? They may not be smoking, but they may be abusive in one form or another. It doesn't have to be physical.
Right.
And we talked about
it. It could be emotional. That. It could be verbal. It could be, you know, all different, anything that harms your spirit, anything that compromises your own integrity is something that is unhealthy for you. And you need to remove yourself from those situations.
If it causes you hurt, it's probably hurting your integrity. It's hurting who you are.
Yeah.
And hurting your children indirectly.
Which causes low self-esteem.
Yes, and having been through a divorce, we often think, oh, I need to stay together to protect my children. But the truth is that children sense everything. It's amazing.
Everything. They know. They know when there's tension. They don't understand it. They understand tone in the voice. You know what I mean? There's so many different things that, you know, that they feel. And you want to put them in the healthiest, most loving, most, you know, kind of happy environment that you can. And you got to figure out what that is.
And want it for yourself, too. The happiest, best, most loving environment that you can find.
And, you know, when you get divorced, Nora Ephron, who was an editor at large here and a good friend, said to me one day, marriage comes and goes, but divorce lasts forever.
Yikes.
I love that.
And that was really the motto for our divorce section. And what she meant by that is that when you have children, in a way you are co-parenting.
Sure.
Even if you are the person primarily responsible.
Yep.
Gwyneth Paltrow called it conscious uncoupling. So how is that working for you with Mark and for you with Lucy's dad?
For me and Mark, you know, again, I'm the main caretaker in their lives, and I provide them with as much love and care and time as I can. Mark and I are very good friends. We're very supportive. This was after we were divorced. They're happy holding hands. You know, we try our best to do the best we can for them, and always let them know that, you know, I feel it's my responsibility as a mom, when the dad is not there, to let them know that their dad loves them very much. Because that's the doubt that they have when he's not around, or they haven't seen him. That's my job to do that, the same way it's his job when he's with them to say, Mommy's working and she loves you, and it's not, you know, because it's that abandonment that they feel that leaves a little bit of a hole there for them, right? So it's our job to let them know how loved they are, and Mark and I work very hard to make sure that they know that.
That's great. And do you do that with Lucy's dad?
I know that Jen talks a lot in the book too about how you can't shake that feeling like, I couldn't make this work for my baby. I couldn't make her family whole, and I couldn't make all of that stuff happen. And it's doing all the things that, you know, you want to do for your kid, which is make it work with their dad, make sure they're getting everything they need from him and all the time, and that you guys are working on it to make it good. That helps you too. You know what I mean? It helps that part that made you feel like a little bit of a failure for not making it all perfect and dreamlike and happy like it's supposed to be in the movies or on TV. It's you know, when you do that, it's a huge step forward to making all of you whole. And I love that we get.
You look a lot like Mommy.
Thanks, man. You mean 69 and with a busted knee right now?
No, that's 70 years old. I'm just saying, it's crazy. You look so much like Mommy.
But isn't it great to have that feeling? Because you said that your mom is the person who makes you laugh more than anybody.
Absolutely.
Hilarious.
She really does. I mean, she's done some crazy things. But she's, again, like the life inside of us. Like, I feel like the entertainer in me is half of it's her, you know? She was a great, fun mom who's fiercely protective and, you know, and loves us with her heart and soul.
Sometimes I get up in the middle of the living room when music is on and I dance with my daughter. I grab her hands and we dance around, and I would never, that's not inherently who I am as a person.
And this is not much of a dancer.
Not much of a dancer. She's 6, so she doesn't judge. But to have that sort of joy of you want to grab the person that you love and just do that, that comes directly from
Mom.
My mom.
But you know, it's interesting you said she doesn't judge. And that's one of the things that our children give us, that they don't judge us.
Yeah.
And it makes it easier for us to see when we are judging ourselves. There is something Louise Hay said to you, which I absolutely love, and I've written it down. She said to you, you're a dancer, right? When you're learning a dance, if you mess up a step, you don't beat yourself up. You just go on. You don't get angry or hate yourself. You just learn to do the dance step.
And it's going until you get the dance right.
Yeah, it's so interesting how we can do that in our professional lives, but it's much harder for women to accept that in our personal lives, that it's not all going to be like a fairy tale. We're going to make mistakes, and we can learn from each of these mistakes.
Yeah, you can learn, but you also have to keep trying. I think that's what she was saying. She was like, Jennifer, I know you feel like, gosh, I've gotten it wrong a few times now, and that can beat you down. She's like, but don't. Remember, as a dancer, and I always told her, she goes, what do you consider? I said, in my heart, I'm a dancer.
Yes.
You know, I'm a singer, I'm a performer. And she was like, then you don't beat yourself up. You just keep trying to get better and better at it. She goes, just keep trying to get better and better at it. You'll get the steps right one day. She goes, don't you always eventually get the steps? And I go, yes. She goes, and you will here too.
That was so huge for me. That was one of the big takeaways for me too, and the whole process of the book, and Jennifer sharing the messages that she shares that everyone can really feel. That one was massive.
So there is something else which is very important to all of us here at HuffPost, and this is how can women avoid burnout? And you told me over lunch about the moment when you burnt out and you froze on the set of a movie. Would you tell us about that? Because we're all working hard to make women realize that we don't have to get to the point of burnout before we bring about changes in our lives.
Right. Well, it's so funny, even in this time in society, like how much we feel we have to prove ourselves all the time, right? And how much we can take. And to be honest, you know, it comes back to self-love again, you know, and finding a balance and going, wait a minute, this is too much. This is not good for me. But at that time, I was working on a movie called Enough. I was recording an album. I was doing videos on the weekend, and I was recording at night. I had worked maybe 55 days in a row without a day off, and shooting on a film. And I just one day was walking towards the set, and started, like, every time I walked to the step, my heart would start beating, and I would start getting frightened. And I was like, what is going on? I didn't even know what it was. And literally, it was my body and my mind shutting down. And it was just a burnout, you know? And I finally, towards the end of the day, around 4 or 5 in the afternoon, I sat there, and I couldn't see. Like, my vision went blurry. I couldn't move, and I started saying to my friend Arlene, who was my assistant for many years and was one of my best friends since I was in the 2nd grade, I said, who had never seen me like this, I said, I'm scared, I can't move, and I can't see. And she was like, stop it, Jennifer, you're scaring me. And I was like, I'm serious, I can't. And she went and got my security, B.O.B., who was also like family to me, and he picked me up and they took me to the hospital. And the doctor was like, what have you been doing? And I started telling him my schedule, and he was like, how many hours a night do you sleep? And I told him, 4 or 5. And I've been doing this for years. And he was like, you have to take care of yourself. I need you to sleep 8, 9 hours a night. 7 to 9 hours a night. I need you to eat. I need you to, what was the other thing? No caffeine. Like, he was telling me, you have to exercise, you have to fit this in it. And I thought I was active and healthy and dancing and doing all this stuff, and I was so strong. But the truth is, I wasn't taking care of myself at all. I wasn't loving myself at all, or all I was thinking about was pleasing everybody else and showing everybody else that I could do all these things and that I was fine. And it was just that thing that was missing, that missing component that was still missing so many years later, because I did enough back in the early 2000s, and here we are in 2014, and the journey goes on of learning that I have to take care of myself first before I can take care of anybody else.
No idea how many stories I've heard from women, because I told my own story of how I collapsed and broke my cheekbone and got 4 stitches on my right eye, and ever since then, women have been telling me similar stories. The details differ.
Yeah, sure.
But it's the same point of us not really valuing ourselves enough to take care of ourselves. And now, of course, all the modern science shows that when we get enough sleep, when we take time to renew ourselves, everything is better. And
everything.
You've said that. You've said that when you are tired, you're your worst self. And now you've learned to treasure sleep and renewal.
I love it because, listen, not only am I not my best self, but I'm fearful. I have anxiety. There's so many different things that come along when you don't get that proper rest, and people don't realize it. It's just like the simple, basic things of how we're taught to take care of ourselves from when we're little, what our parents do for us. They put us to bed at a certain time. They feed us 3 meals a day. They clean, all that stuff. It's taking care of yourself, taking a nice bath. You know what I mean? It's like, give yourself that luxury. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay. And it's good for you.
It's like what they say on the airplane. Put your own oxygen mask first.
Right.
And then you can take care of everyone else.
Because you can't take care of anybody if you can't take care of yourself. And learning to love yourself, which is honestly the reason why I wound up putting out the book, because I thought about not putting out this book so many times because it's very vulnerable. It's like another peek behind the curtain of my professional life. I'm fine professionally being out there in the public eye, but as you pull that back and you let people know a little bit more about this is what was going on behind the scenes at that time, you feel very vulnerable, and I feel very exposed. But I felt like if somebody would have told me this, somebody that I looked up to at that time, I would have loved that, because maybe it would have changed things for me. I would have made different choices, or at least the seed would have been planted. It may have taken me longer. I may have still gone down the same path, but the seed would have been planted, and maybe I could have saved myself some heartache.
It's really what we said at the beginning. I really believe that the book will help women prevent the kind of hitting rock bottom times.
Right.
Making the right decisions.
Starting to work on themselves now.
Yes, now.
That would be the best thing.
Before the burnout.
Right.
Before the collapse.
Yeah, knowing that you should take care of yourself,
yes.
Knowing that you shouldn't be in, relationships that don't make you feel good, knowing that you deserve the best, knowing that you can be all the things you want to be, and you deserve that.
And that it all starts with accepting ourselves where we are. The way you both have described to me that unconditional love for your children, if we can give that to ourselves. Unfortunately, we only have a couple of minutes left,
Yes.
so I don't want us to go without talking about your amazing foundation that you
Thank
two
you.
founded, the Lopez Family Foundation. What made you do it, and what are the priorities?
It's funny. It all comes back to exactly the same things that we're talking about working on the women, how we really feel like this is a time where everyone's finally paying attention to that. We've gone through all of history almost, it feels like, without having a real focus on women, how we need to
We're
support
whips.
them.
We're works in progress, right?
Yeah,
we
all
all
of us,
are. Right,
right?
WIPs, that's what we are. And at the end of the day, working on the woman is something that's really important.
And so even just through the foundation, the smaller things we do that are the programs that are really concentrated on health for women and children and newborns contribute to that same goal.
That same message.
Yeah, I was just talking about it a little while ago that our very first program that we did is a telemedicine program in Puerto Rico. And so newborns and toddlers are able to come to basically like a satellite hookup and talk to doctors in Los Angeles, at Children's Hospital of Los Angeles, and get genetic disease diagnosed, treated, cured. And those mothers are getting that care so that they have the peace of mind, they have the better tools, they have everything to manage something that's a huge deal, which we all know, which is your child's health, which everything else stops and you take care of that. And just that was the goal for us. We just wanted to give that to more women and more mothers. Like, here's all the support you need, here's all the tools, here's all the help, and here's some peace of mind. So we'll create that program for this health thing. We had a huge day the other day. Actually, my favorite day of the foundation so far happens in we have a program in Panama, and it's a tele-ultrasound program. So portable ultrasound machines get to go out to the indigenous areas and the mountainous areas, and women there who are pregnant and would never have an ultrasound get to suffer for that. And we had our first day the other day, our first
And on
woman.
the first day,
On the very first patient that we had, the doctor noticed in the scan that the baby had some enlarged kidneys, that there were kidney issues. And so she was going to have to be transported so the baby could be monitored and scanned on birth, and her labor and delivery.
would have been a very bad situation if
Yeah.
she wouldn't have had an ultrasound. So
Right, if she
it
wouldn't
was,
have
it was
gotten
an exciting day. Like,
That is
okay, this works. This is a good thing.
But it's about that. It's about taking that burden and care and piece of, off a woman.
And I want
having
to
her be
invite you to keep writing about these stories on the Huffington Post, because they are
thank
so
you.
inspiring for others. And I want to thank you both for
Thank
coming.
you.
And you said at the beginning, Jennifer, we should have been wearing sweatpants and curl up on the couch and talk. Well,
With our
let's
socks.
do that next time.
Next time we'll do that.
Okay? Come
Next
next
time.
time and we'll do it. And
Yeah.
thank you again. And thank you for writing True Love.
Thank
you for exposing yourself in this most vulnerable way, because I really believe it will help a lot of women. I already gave it to my two daughters, who are 23
brave,
and
right?
25. Because exactly, I feel they can learn things now that will help them avoid a lot of heartache later. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being with us. And please share with us your stories of burnout, your stories of that wake-up moment when you decided to make changes in your life. Thank you.